Hello, and welcome to Represent the Podcast, the show where I, Caiti Beth McKinney, sit down with composers from historically marginalized and underrepresented backgrounds and discuss their works for the horn. Hope you enjoy, and thanks for tuning in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Represent the Podcast. I'm your host, Caiti Beth McKinney. This is a show where I speak with composers from historically marginalized or underrepresented backgrounds about their works for horn. Today I have with me Lydia Lowery Busler, who is a horn player, composer, and transformation coach, and I'm really excited to jump in with her. So thank you, Lydia, for being here today.
Hey, thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
I know we're in different weather zones, even if we're in the same time zone, so this is, I'm sure,
Oh
fun.
my gosh, it is so cold here.
And for those who don't know, I'm speaking, well, right now I'm in sunny Venice, Florida, actually, which I'm happy to report survived the hurricane. So this is a good
Yay.
time here. Oh my goodness. So, how did you start in music and in composing? Those can be two completely different answers if you'd like to give them.
Right. Well, first of all, music. Let's see. I think I started singing really, really early. My parents say that I started singing when I was like in the in the crib. And then I really just started kind of in the school playing flutophone.
Flutophone.
Yeah, it was that. Yeah, they gave us all flutophones. They were, instead of recorders, they're like recorder like things.
Okay, yeah, I'm
So
uneducated. I don't know what a flutophone is, so that's a new one for
yeah,
me.
it's very much like a recorder, except it's plastic. And
Mm.
I and apparently this was something that in rural Massachusetts people had, because I had my mother's flutophone that she had had when she was little. And yeah, and everybody else had these white plastic ones, and I had a black one. So it looked very
Ooh.
much like a real recorder. So we learned things like kookaburra,
Oh, yes. Classic.
the well-revered kookaburra. And yeah, after that, I actually, my beginnings were a lot in observing Russian ballet. uh that
No
was just
kidding.
something that I observed a lot of. And back then you could we had a family friend who's not alive anymore, but he got a um he somehow got a Russian bride. And she came over from Russia and was a guest in our house quite often. I still have a liking for Russian tea. I have Russian tea tins with Russian written all over them, and I, had no idea back then, but she and I conversed. Anyway, I loved watching the Russian ballet, and I heard the Russian horn players,
Mhm.
and I loved listening to the Russian ballet. So when in the school they it came time to choose instruments, I wanted to play flute because my mother played flute, and they said, "Wouldn't you like to play this French horn?" And I looked at it, and it was all swirly and beautiful and shiny, and I actually knew what it sounded like. And so it was pretty much a hell yeah. um so that's what I did.
That's
And
incredible. Yeah, Russian ballet is not an answer I've gotten before, so that's great. That's amazing.
right. It carried it, with those cases, those clunky cases with
Mhm.
the big bell, and knocking against my knees, and got on the bus, and the bus
Mhm.
driver would say, "What's a little girl like you doing playing a big tuba like that?" And I'd say, "It's not a tuba."
Oh yeah, we all know those bruises that you get from those hard cases before we get screw bell horns, right? It's on
Yep.
your shins and calves and God knows where else. Oh yes, throwback. Um, so how did you get into composing?
Composing just started to happen. I think I just did it. And it was and I didn't really think about the fact that I was doing it. I think I've always created, and I started just improvising by starting to play things that I heard and um, just playing them by ear, and then just playing what I heard in my head and playing that by ear.
Mm-hmm.
And then that turned into writing down what I heard in my head. So after having written a few things that, and not really taking myself that seriously as a composer for whatever reason, I don't know, because I think I'd written more than people who really did take themselves seriously. But I had studied theory um at New England Conservatory at that time, and I was pretty well versed, but I still didn't think of myself as a composer. But um then I started to really think about it. I think the problem was my manuscript was so slow, and I was
Mm.
writing all in manuscript.
Mm.
A lot of people think of themselves as composers, and they just and I'm not poo-pooing this at all, but they compose from a keyboard,
Mm-hmm.
and um it goes straight into the software, and I really do note for note.
Mm-hmm.
um and sometimes I was using I one of my pieces, the Frost Cycle, was half composed in New York City, and which is funny because it's so pastoral, but
Mm-hmm.
and half composed on a little island in the middle of a lake called Lake Winnipesaukee
Mm.
in the tiny state of New Hampshire,
Mm-hmm.
where I was teaching at a Suzuki camp, which may sound funny as a hornist, but
We like to be
yeah,
well-rounded as horn players. That's part of our thing,
that's
right?
right.
You know,
And
if we can read in all
I had
keys,
a
we can teach all
cabin.
instruments. Oh, you have a cat? Oh, how
That's
cool.
right. Well, I had a cabin there,
Mm-hmm.
and it was for that, and it had no power or anything, and I just sat in there and I just wrote from my brain this, a couple of the movements of the Frost Cycle. But writing down this stuff and manuscript being so was really just like, it's kind of tedious.
Mm-hmm. Which, correct me if I'm wrong, the
And
frost
then,
cycle is for horn and soprano and piano, right?
yeah, that's
Yes,
right.
right. So yeah, I
And
imagine writing piano manuscript is slow.
yeah, but people ended up really liking that piece a lot.
Oh yeah, it's gorgeous.
It's really, one of the movements of it's really strophic,
Hmm.
and just, it's kind of an easy to easier to like piece than some. But the I did a I I had a baby, and I started to miss it. I just started to really miss it because I constantly had this kid on my back,
Hmm.
and constantly just didn't have time. So I said, I've got to do something. I was just walking around town, kind of with tears in my eyes, saying, I'm not sitting down and doing this.
Hmm.
So what can I do? And so then I really just took to improvising again. I said, I'm going to play an entire concert improvised. And I did it. I just said, I'm going to improvise this concert. This is what it's going to be called. Y'all come. And so
Right.
that's what
Wow.
and I made a program. I said these are what the pieces are going to be called. I do name my improvisations because it just kind of keeps me honest.
Hmm.
It makes it so that I'm not ever repeating stuff.
Hmm.
I don't think I do repeat stuff, but it gives the audience something to adhere to.
Hmm.
And then I also take suggestions from the audience.
And just to be
Um,
clear, this was on horn. You improvised
and
an
that was
entire
on the
concert on
horn that I
horn.
did that. Yeah,
Wow.
I will also do that with voice. I'll do that with horn and voice.
Mm-hmm.
But and one of the pieces, just I kept it in my memory so much that I turned it into a piece that I wrote later.
Mm-hmm.
And that was Moon Lilies.
Oh, yes.
So um and then I got music composition software and I became a finale junkie. And since since finale, I've written a lot. And I started writing orchestral pieces and I still improvise a lot. I've gone all over the country improvising and teaching people how to free improvise
Mm-hmm.
with without it being scary.
I was gonna say, as a horn player, I think one of my big fears, I won't speak for the whole community, but maybe more of us, fracking notes is scary. And the idea of having to improvise on the horn is terrifying to me. So I'd love for you to talk more a little bit about that if you want.
Sure. Yeah. I've gone to great big groups of brass players and gotten them to free improvise and gotten them to improvise with one another.
Hmm.
And how do you do that, you know?
Right.
So the thing that scares people is um almost universally when because it scares people who can improvise too, but improvise with a chart in front of them,
Hmm.
so you've got a key structure there, you've got someone laying down a rhythm, you've got support. So when that happens, you're not out there naked. But when you go to improvise and you're free improvising, people are listening and they're expecting something and they're going to hear a structure, but you're out there, you feel naked
Hmm.
because you don't have a structure. You feel like you don't have anything in mind. The thing is, they don't know that. There's no reason you can't give yourself a structure. So, how I often start people is just to have everybody play something that everybody knows. I just give them a key and I have them play something like Amazing Grace.
Hmm.
And everybody can usually do it. And then I'll have everybody just start to play around with it a little bit. And it's kind of show them that they can do that. And then say that really a free improvisation has something in which you give yourself a parameter, just something. It's like throwing yourself a big scarf. You can do whatever you want with this scarf. You can wear it as a turban, you can wear it as a toga, you can wear it as a skirt. You can, you can wear it over your head and go as a ghost. It doesn't matter. But you do something with the scarf. And that's your improvisation. So if you want to say, okay, I'm gonna play in the key of A, and that's all I know, and I'm gonna only do it one octave. And once I feel comfortable with that, I'm gonna push it a little bit. Then you can do a lot with that. You can decide that you are a little more brave than that, and you're gonna play it in the key of A, and somewhere once you feel comfortable, you're gonna change that to the key of D. And you can do that. And it's gonna, probably sound darn snazzy.
Darn snazzy. I like that.
um but you just have to do something and just make yourself comfortable and do it on your own, record yourself and see
Hmm.
what you did and change rhythms. And eventually you can do something like just give yourself a story. But that's
And you
only,
said Moon Lilies came from that style of improvisation.
yeah. I mean, Moon Lilies, one of the things about that is I actually changed modes. Um,
Mm.
so I I went up in one mode and then up in another and up in one and up in another. And it gives a very, when you change modes, it gives a very mysterious kind of feel. And that's something that I do a lot in my music. When I compose, I do a lot of mode shifting. Um, so it makes, it gives a very, it gives a very shifty atmospheric kind of quality to it. It's not something that I try to use as a device. It's something that I feel. Um, and more that I've noticed that that's how I do it.
I found that we all tend to have things we maybe gravitate towards. It's our personal language. When I sit down at a piano and I improvise, it all ends up sounding like Lord of the Rings music. And I can't escape it. That's what I love in my soul, and that's what comes out. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do a lot of ethnic improvisation, but a lot of mine waxes Celtic.
Oh,
And
sure.
yeah, but I love to do any sort of any sort of different ethnicities. And when someone um I love to do Turkish kinds of things. And and the thing is, a lot of them kind of have similarities, but
Mhm.
I love to do Sephardic music. And just there's just so many things that are cool. I don't um I don't write that much, um like in a, say, a Turkish style, or um but yeah, just if, and I don't really know exactly where I've gotten this, propensity to do all these different styles. But I can do a few African styles. And it's it's nice to just play and get into a groove of a different sort.
Mhm.
But the thing is, a groove like that is a parameter. It's something that you can fit in. It's like putting on a glove and then you just go.
So it's kind of giving yourself boundaries to expand your freedom, I guess really is what's
Exactly.
happening. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So if you don't, complete freedom, people want to be free, but they don't feel comfortable just, like jumping off a building with no parachute.
Sure.
It's not comfortable.
Right.
And that's why people don't like the idea of free improvising. And what they are always given as something, as the comforting hurrah, is just do whatever you want. And it doesn't work for them to be given that instruction.
Right. Paralysis of choice.
Yeah, yeah.
So, do you find that all of your compositions start from this improvisatory nature, or do you sometimes just have a melody in your head that you want to put down, or?
I will often just have a melody in my head that I will put down. And sometimes when I go to improvise, I'll have that too. So
Hmm.
it's all kind of the same brain. Um, I used to sometimes bemoan if I would have, just this idea in my head and I wouldn't get a chance to write it down. And I stopped doing that because I realized there's always going to be something there.
Hmm. You're not going to run out of
Um,
ideas.
no, I don't think so. I just get edgy if a long time goes by and I haven't done anything.
Where do you find inspiration for music?
You know, my biggest inspiration, which is kind of um I think I find it to be kind of weird, but my biggest inspiration is being in a vacuum.
Mm.
I like to be just like to go into a cave for quite a while and do, I don't mean a literal cave, but
I was about to ask, I was
figuratively.
like, are there a lot of caves in Vermont?
I, I sit in the cave, and once I get too cold, I
Right. That could be a fun acoustic experimental place, though.
right. But
A metaphorical cave.
yes. And then there's the hold on a second. I think my dog is, hold on.
Oh, it's okay. I don't think I have any listeners who will be offended by puppy dog needs.
Oh yeah. Hi, Ruby. Oh my goodness, Ruby, you've got your bear in your mouth. So nice.
Oh.
Hello, Ruby. Oh my goodness. Hello, Ruby. Well,
We have been joined by two adorable dogs.
Ruby.
Oh my goodness. One is a
So,
little black floof.
yes. Okay, Ruby. So when I work on my own, um, it just, or in a, in a vacuum, it's my own voice, and it tends to somehow feed on itself. And then I emerge, and uh I see what's going on in the world, and I assimilate, acquire, whatever. And then I just go back into my vacuum, and I kind of started like that as a kid, and it's just kind of the way I work. So where I'm getting my inspiration from is probably a lot from my past and from my memories, as well as just what I create and recreate from that. I also get inspiration from nature. Like sometimes I will actually use bird calls, and I just wrote a fanfare, and I specifically put it in the key of the earth, which seems to generally be um, understood, and I've understood this too, to be D flat minor, or but I put it in C sharp minor because that's a little easier to read. Um,
Oh, I have
and I,
questions. I don't know about the key of the earth. I'd love to know more about this.
yeah, in general, when people have just recorded ocean and storm and birds, and the pitches come out to be when whether slowed down, sped up, um, they come out to be C sharp minor.
Wow. I'm gonna have to go
And that,
research this.
yeah, yeah. Um, and furthermore, I used in this fanfare that I just wrote, which is the fanfare for every woman.
Hmm.
I wrote it for double brass choir and a C sharp two gong, C sharp, low C sharp gong. Um, I have the gong go off every 26 seconds. So, and that's because there is seismologists have been um, recording since the 60s that there is a microseism that seems to happen in some places of the earth, and it's not something that we feel really, but it's enough to be recorded, that the earth shakes every 26 seconds.
Whoa.
When this happens, it's like a little murmur. They don't consider that to be the heartbeat of the earth. They consider that the earth has a heartbeat as well, but that's over a matter of like 25 million years. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to calculate that down to something.
That's too much. That's too
So
much math.
no. but yeah, so sometimes I'll take things like that and put them in because that's just really wonderful to bring in and unite all women with that.
Mhm.
And um it's just it's just wonderful.
I think that's an incredible mix of cerebral and corporeal. I mean, the mix of the thought process behind that with a very organic, nature-based thing. That's wonderful. I think that's brilliant. So, do you feel like you have a certain compositional language that you could describe?
I think that it's mostly that I'm mostly um lyrical atmospheric.
Hmm.
Um but I will use elements of 12 tone sometimes. I will use, and I like I said before, I use modal shifting. So I'm going toward more less breadth. I used to a lot of my pieces are 20, 30 pieces, 30 minutes long.
Hmm.
And I'm really making them more succinct now. Um, just for the sake of playability and audience. So it's not a universal thing. I just want to be able to do that. It's kind of like a challenge to myself to get things really wrapped up in that amount of time and still create an atmosphere. But I do a lot of tone poem sorts of things too. Really just the tone poem kind of um, feeling, such as my my well, I have one that was written for the Caiti trio, and the it was um with the um Ramon commissioning fund
Hmm.
from the IHS, and that's called Lanterns, and it has four different movements of it, and each movement tells the story of that's going around a lantern in history, and it's all make believe. But and the first one is Seasons of a Street Lamp, and it has each of the seasons. And this is just in one movement, so they each really stand on their own. But you can imagine kids running around in the summer, and the fall is kind of nostalgic, and the winter is a different feel than the spring. um and there's one called Paul Revere, and that's a lamp that's like in a tavern, and it's got all these, you know, kind of pride kind of feelings and imperial kinds of feelings, and then you can hear the clock striking, and you can hear horses hooves, and um there's a there's one that's all about Japanese lamps, and it's got different sections of it named after different Japanese lamps. And um I love that one. I loved writing that one, and that one was very much inspired because I really studied Japanese music for that, and went for um I I basically wrote Japanese folk songs without using Japanese folk songs. And I made the flute and the horn emulate Japanese instruments. Um And then the last one is magic, and it's around a magic lantern. So they're very much tone poems because they're telling stories. And then there are the things that I do where I actually have people singing stories. So
So
those have
storytelling is a
stories too.
main component of your composition for sure, then.
Yeah, very, very much. If not a story, then an atmosphere in which the listener may come up with their own story or their own scene at very least. I don't have very much music for its own sake. I would say that the fanfare that I just wrote is a little different than that in that case.
Yeah, fanfares are a special case because they're kind of serving a function, I guess, more
That's
than.
right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a few things like that are ceremonial
Sure.
pieces, but
Hmm.
yeah.
Now, is that a play off of the Copeland Tower collection of fanfares?
Yeah.
Hmm. That's
Yep.
fun. That's very fun. So this is a question I like to ask all my guests just to give an insight to their personality. Who is your favorite composer? And you can answer yourself, but I love to hear other answers as well.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's really hard.
I know.
So difficult. I I love well, I love several dead white men, unfortunately.
Hey, we all have our favorites. I'm a
Yeah.
Mahler apologist, and I can't help myself. So,
Yeah. 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 I love playing Mahler, and I love teaching Mahler, and I like
we're horn
there are
players.
articulations that you use just for Mahler.
Hmm.
This is where you use this articulation. Um, but seriously, I adore Wagner.
Hmm.
I adore Beethoven's Second Symphony.
Mm.
Um, I really like Alban Berg.
Hmm.
I really like um Bieber a lot. The like the
I didn't think
old
you meant
composer Bieber.
yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
think you
not
meant
Justin
Justin.
Bieber.
No shade to any Justin Bieber fans, but
Yeah, no. I'm saying the really old guy. And I there's a friend of mine whose name is Dennis Bathory Kitts, who he writes a ton of stuff. And he wrote an opera called Erzsébet. Um, and it is fabulous.
That's great.
So good.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I'll think of a whole bunch after. It's
Oh, of
funny.
course.
My I'm a person who doesn't attach myself that much to certain things. I don't I don't
You're not a sports team person.
I change, yeah, I change a lot. So I will, probably think of things after.
Of course. Oh, my answer to this question would change depending on the hour of day you ask me. So,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
completely understand.
yeah. I mean, some people are unwavering in their thoughts, and I'm not.
Oh no,
So
I'm not either. I used to be an absolute Debussy hater. And, that changed in it took 5 years, but I came around and was like, "Oh, I've been wrong this whole time." It's funny how our opinions
yeah,
about composers
yeah,
change.
yeah.
So,
There's some really incredible stuff.
mhm. It's great. So,
Yeah,
what do you
I'm thinking.
find? Oh no, yeah, you can always come back and stop me and say, "Hey, I've got another one." But
Yeah.
so how do you typically and do you have commissioners who approach you for pieces of music, or do you just write things because you want to write them?
Yes. I used to really just compose entirely off of commissions for quite a while, like
Mm-hmm.
nonstop commissions. But that really stopped during the pandemic. I think people
Oh.
are just feeling like that's too much of a luxury.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so um just lately I just wrote a piece for Mary Beth Orr.
Mm-hmm. Not to be confused with
Um,
me, because our people get our names mixed up. Caiti Beth and
yeah,
Mary Beth. That happens more often than
right,
you'd know.
right. Um, and that's a short one called Dream of an Epiphany, and it's
Mm.
for her singing with herself.
Oh.
She's got more things on the up her sleeve, but
Mm-hmm.
and that's written on the words of trying to remember here, Zora Neale Hurston.
Mm-hmm.
I have, I mean, I've written a whole bunch of commissions, but very, very little during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. In your experience in the past, how did you get connected with people who wanted to commission your music and perform it?
Someone might have known someone, or they knew me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of it, I think it's easier if people, I think it's easier being a performer,
Mm-hmm.
being even, being a well-known performer. I think I went from being a well-known performer to being someone who people know is a composer. And I think that, I say that sort of with tongue in cheek because I'm always on my soapbox about how women don't realize that women compose when there are just as many female composers as there are male composers, and yet every day you see questions on social media saying, are there any female composers out there? I'm thinking of playing some in my recital. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking of writing my thesis on it. And I'm like, oh my God, you're writing a thesis and you don't even know the answer to this question.
Right.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, people relatively know that I'm a composer at this point, and
Mm-hmm.
um, because I'm, starting to shift to, I'm not playing in, I used to play in big orchestras and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, heck, I started my career playing with the BSO when I was 16, but
Yeah, no big deal.
I, you know,
No.
but but I and I, like I turned down a being groomed for the Met because I was pregnant, and I probably would have done something like that, but
Mm-hmm.
my ex was really down on it. So I just kind of, now I don't want to play in orchestras anymore, even though I love having that big feeling around me, because I like more the personal connection with
Mm-hmm.
people. And so I'll still do improvisatory gigs and stuff um now and then, but I like the hands-on stuff with the I like composing. I
Mm-hmm.
love composing, um and also the coaching. I like to connect with people. My favorite thing in the whole world is to see people feel something.
Mm.
And when I'm in orchestra, I can't really do that because I'm
Right.
sitting in the back.
Right. I know. That's the
you
horn player
know?
struggle. Mm-hmm. I was
So
very lucky lately. I got to play a concert at the New World Center out in Miami, and that is a very
mhm,
small hall.
yeah,
And so you can
yeah,
see everyone's face, and it was both intimidating and uplifting because I saw some people clearly bored out of their minds, and it was, Elgar's Enigma Variations. It's not a boring piece. It's beautiful music.
yeah.
Some people were bored and probably didn't want to be there in the first place, but some people were just enraptured. And it was really, really fun getting to watch the facial expressions of. Oh, and we also did the Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto, and so I had
Mhm.
lots of chances to watch the audience during that while the soloist was playing their cadenzas, and watching the audience really just eat it up was such a treat, and I wish we as horn players got to do that more often. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
exactly. Yeah, I just love that. And when I'm a soloist, I get to see that, and that's, great, but I'm not going to do that all the time.
Right.
And so if I'm doing an improv gig, then, that's fine and we can have a connection, although it's not quite the same. But when I compose something, then I can sit out in the audience. I don't all the time. I mean, lots of times your music gets played and you don't know it's being played. It's being played
Right.
out of some college or something. But if I am there, I can see what is happening in the audience, and that's neat. And I love to coach people and see how their feelings come out and
Mhm.
how they grow. And that's just so much more meaningful for me, because we're in such a such a time of change, and people needing to step out of themselves or step into themselves in order to deal with all the changes.
Absolutely. So your favorite place to be is in the thick of it. That's you want to be right in there.
Yeah, I really do. And be an instigator, I guess.
Well, someone has to be, right? Otherwise things would never start.
Right, right. The composition has a lot of lately. I've been writing a lot of things for like tuba quartets and stuff, because yeah, oh, it's so much fun. Um, the tuba quartet up here called Metalworks, and
Ooh.
they one of the tuba players plays in a quintet with me, and he plays in a quartet with one of the tuba players in the BSO, and
Mm-hmm.
a couple of other euphonium players, and they have this group called Metalworks, and they keep commissioning me to play to write things for them. And it's yeah, it's really fun. So that's, things like that happen.
Have you written anything for horn and tuba yet?
Not yet, no.
Ooh.
Which is, I don't think I have. No, I mean, horn and tuba in sextets and stuff, but not
Sure.
and quintets.
Not in
But
duo. Oh, well, if you do, I'll be the first to sign up for it.
yeah,
Yeah, the very important person in my life now is a tuba player. So, this
sweet.
I'm soaking up all those duos now. So great.
Right. Yeah. Oh, there's some fun ones, because I've gone out and played quite a few of them with Tony Clements out in California, with the
Hmm.
San Jose Symphony.
So I'm gonna switch now into what I call the heavy portion of the podcast. I need to get
Okay.
a little jingle or something to make it more jocular. But so what do you feel have been the greatest challenges of your career?
Um, Closed minds.
Yeah, that's a really succinct way to put it. Do you feel like you've experienced any hardships based on your gender when it comes to composing or performing?
For sure. I have just
Hmm.
been absolutely overlooked and locked out because of my gender.
Hmm.
I have I have like when I even here, like in this is actually an extremely artsy state, but up here I
Hmm.
will I will be I'll play, say, in a quintet, and I will play in a concert, and I will have written music. I will have been the contractor. I will have been and I will have, really kind of led the group. And everybody will congratulate all the men. And if anybody gives me the time of day, they will be like, oh, I've gotten comments as much as like, must be really nice for you to play with these guys.
Hmm.
And it's just astonishing, the disrespect, or and just the ignorance.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, because I'm sure some of the time it's not intentional, of course, but
right,
it's just
right.
it's wild.
And
Hmm.
it's very different, because when I used to play in Italy. And when I first came to play in the Rome Opera, the guys there were like, okay, I came to play in the Rome Opera. That's it. Obviously I could play, but they were like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. And they were very polite um and welcomed me. And then I played and they were like, whoa, and they're like, how did you get that sound? And the same way you do. And then after that, they were completely respectful and just treated me normally. It wasn't like, they didn't ignore me. It was just like they had never been exposed to it before. And once they
Mm-hmm.
were, everything was all cool. Here, people can't get it through their thick heads even when they're exposed to it. So
Mm-hmm.
I've been composing, and somebody picks up a pen and paper when they are playing an instrument and they write a song for their students and they're a man. And this is not to disrespect the man either. It's just that they suddenly become a composer and they
Mm-hmm.
get lauded and applauded, and then they go on and their career gets lifted. And
Mm-hmm.
by the time they're really famous, they've written three pieces, you know,
Right.
and
Mm-hmm.
and nobody, I have gotten such things as, hey, do you know that so and so is a composer? You might get some tips from them, because maybe you could, lift your career, and they've written freaking, three pieces for their students. I have, like, what, 90 pieces,
Yeah, you have an extensive catalog.
and people,
Mm-hmm.
playing this stuff all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, and all I can see is that it's just ignorance. But and I keep questioning myself, why are we so invisible?
Mm-hmm.
And why are we invisible to ourselves? Why are we invisible to women?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, I'm not invisible to you, but we're even invisible to a fair amount of other women who are composing, who are
Mm-hmm.
just kind of sitting there. They figure that they're the only ones,
Mm-hmm.
or they know maybe a couple, but why do we have the shadow around ourselves? It's
Right.
why isn't it just Why don't people think, oh, I bet there are just as many women composing as men? Because there are.
Right, of course.
It's just that some of it's better than others, just like men. And it's not, and just like men, some of the men's stuff isn't that good. Some of the women's stuff is better. And some of it you're going to like better, and some of it you're not going to like. It's just normal. We're all just humans.
Right. And what may be a masterpiece to one listener is not a masterpiece to another one. It's hard to assign value to artistic works, and I would
Right.
argue against assigning value to it. Just because it's not popular now doesn't mean it won't be, canon, quote unquote, in 20 years. It's wild,
Yeah.
this whole system we've
Yeah.
got going. But now I'm curious, have you come up with an answer to yourself about this question you ask, why are we so invisible?
I think I haven't entirely, I've come up with thoughts.
Mhm.
There's a lot of programming. There's just like there are a lot of women who put down other women because of roles that we have thought we needed to uphold,
Mhm.
and think that those other women must uphold those roles as well, um, because of pre-programming. We come into the world and we we are this serving. We're serving others.
Mhm.
And we finally get to a point where maybe in late high school, early college, where we might come into our own. But then we will get married, and a lot of women just start serving again.
Mm-hmm.
And when do they lose the part of themselves? Do we lose the part of ourselves um which has come into our own? Do we do we mourn that? Do we want to make sure that other women don't have it too? Do we think other women aren't supposed to have it? And there's this thing that in society, this role that we're supposed to have, even if we're liberated. What is that supposed to mean? What are we supposed to be liberated from?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
Yeah, that's a very third wave word, right? Oh my goodness, I think we're coming to the end here, which is wild because I could keep talking to you for hours more. This has been so much fun. But I love to ask at least one silly question at the end of the heavy portion, which is
yeah.
what
Oh,
hobbies and
yeah.
activities do you do for fun outside of music?
Yeah. Well, I absolutely love to kayak. Um,
Ooh.
I love to go kayaking actually on the ocean. I love going in lakes and stuff, but I love bringing my kayak I love going to Maine and just
Mm-hmm.
going and going from one peninsula to the next and getting lunch or something. I don't want to go straight across the ocean. It's not my that's not my jam, only because there are gigantic those gigantic ocean liners that have like hundreds of freight trains worth of
Mm-hmm.
freight
Of
cars
like
on them.
cargo containers, yeah.
Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, yeah, and they have like two guys on it somewhere, and they're pretty much on autopilot, and they don't.
Right, they're not gonna see you. They'll just run right over you.
Nah, yeah, they do not see you. I
Right.
don't want to deal with that, and I don't want to try to stay awake all night, trying to deal with that. That's not worth it. I'm not a
An
Yahoo
extreme
in that
ocean.
way. Nah,
You're right.
I like the actual
Right.
experience of being on the ocean. I'm not trying to prove anything, but yeah, like going in and actually kayaking to lunch and stuff. I just love that. Otherwise, I am a creative in every way, so I enjoy it. And one little known thing about me is that I am equally degreed in art and music. So I have a
Ooh.
degree in intaglio printmaking, which I don't use, but
I'm sure
but
you
I
use elements you learned in it at
yeah,
some point.
right. So I draw. I like to draw,
Mhm.
and I haven't. I don't really make any. I don't make a living in the other art, but
Mhm.
I like to do it. I just, my parents had me go to art school really before music school. And
Mhm.
um so I do that. I write a blog. I have and I love to cook. And just like I am an
Ah.
improvisationalist, I'm very much a wing it cook. So
See, I'm a
um
baker, so that's my anathema.
yes,
I measure it and put it in exactly how it says.
I love to bake, but if I'm going to measure, I will tend to weigh. Um
Sure.
yeah, I'll tend to weigh it, and otherwise I can like eyeball it and feel it, and like if it's a dough, it's going to feel a certain way, if I'm
Mhm.
making like bread. But
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, I do those kinds of things. And I um after my divorce, I was traveling around country a lot to perform, and I was doing clinics on free improvisation and my compositions, and doing and soloing with orchestras and big brass bands and stuff. And
Mhm.
suddenly I had to get a divorce,
Right.
and that wasn't and you're not going to leave your kid alone to raise themselves, you know. So I stayed here, and there wasn't really enough gigs right here, so I took a job in my love of food and stuff, and I took a job in the wine business
Ooh.
for a little while. And so
Mm-hmm.
I don't like working under somebody else. So that was the thing about that. I'm just not, I'd rather I'd rather not work in wine. I'd rather
Mm-hmm.
like have a meal with my friends and choose the wine and choose what they would
Yes.
like, and tell them about it and stuff. But
So like an at-home sommelier,
that's
basically.
right. Yeah, that's just so much more fun than being, paid for that. But
Hmm.
yeah, so that's about me. I like to kayak. I love food and wine, and that kind of stuff.
It sounds like a great life to me. That's great.
And my dog.
Oh, and of course your dog Mochi, who visited earlier, who was edited out for time's sake, but very cute dog. Oh my gosh. That's so wonderful. So you've got so many pieces for horn available for purchase on your website.
The main site for me is lydialorybusler.com.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
and yeah, to get my works, you um go to the store tab,
Hmm.
and but you can also listen to some of the works on some of the other tabs. There's a tab I think that's for listen, and
Hmm.
yeah.
Yep, we got listening and coaching, and they want to know anything more about you, we can go to lydialowrybustler.com.
Yeah.
And are you on the social medias as well, or are you pretty self-contained to the website?
I'm on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on Instagram.
Oh, great. So you've got them all.
I
And
do. Well, I don't tweet.
oh well, will any of us be tweeting for much longer? Who knows? But
Right?
it's a whole different
These things
podcast right
come and
there.
go.
They sure do. Do you have any upcoming projects or pieces you'd like to promote or share with us?
Yeah, I have just, like I said, I've just written the fanfare for every woman.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about that is I'm putting it out as something that women, and I'm not putting this out for, I mean, I can, but I'm not putting this out for like the top players in the world. I am putting this out for every woman be to be on the score. And because I can't just, pick and choose, I'm actually letting people either sponsor someone for a part, or or choose to be on a part themselves. And I have two trumpet parts and two trombone parts that are still open to be sponsored. The sponsorships are $100 a piece, not huge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you want to be on that, your name will be on that piece forevermore. I'm going to
Ooh.
register it with the names of the 8 women brass players on the work. And it's going to go down, right now at this point in history, when women are fighting for their rights, women are shaving their heads, and um, it is a historical time in history, one of many.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I wrote this piece now. So
Wonderful.
those are open for, you can reach out to me at that website if you would like to sponsor someone for one of those parts, or if you would like to take on one of those parts yourself. There is planned to be a worldwide concurrent performance of that. And we're going to put that um, on various broadcast networks on the YouTubes.
That's wonderful. Is there a date for that yet, or is it still TBD?
Not yet.
Not
Yeah.
yet. Okay.
Yeah. It
All right.
just it
Good.
just got written, and And yeah,
How exciting.
yeah, it's gonna
That's
be,
great. That's big news. That'll be a huge experience for everyone.
yeah, yeah. I'm excited. It's really something that I hope a lot of people will get excited about, because I think it's something that we really could um leverage to lift a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could imagine that message resonating with a lot of women musicians. Absolutely. So,
Yeah,
well, Lydia, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule and talking with me for an hour. It's so
it's been
great.
awesome. I
Oh,
appreciate you.
oh, thank
I'd
you.
love to learn more about you at some point soon.
I know we'll have to do a reverse podcast or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you, listeners, for joining us this week, and we'll have another episode for you a week from today. So, thank you. This has been Represent the Podcast. For more episodes, you can find us at Spotify and Apple Podcasts or on my website, www.caitibethmckinney.com. If you liked what you heard today, please rate us 5 stars or leave a review. Thank you for listening.